I'm going to call to order the City Commission meeting of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, August 26th. It is 6 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Marriott. Here. Commissioner Robinson.
Here.
Commissioner Rysnicki.
Here.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Here.
And Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda as proposed?
Mayor and Commission, I request to remove consent item 4E, and I will bring it back to a future meeting.
Okay. Any other changes? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed?
I move to approve the agenda as proposed.
Second.
City Clerk, if you please, do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Marriott.
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson.
Yes.
Commissioner Rysnicki.
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Yes.
And Mayor Petrilla.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have presentations. The first one is on the budget. We did conclude that budget workshop just a few minutes ago. We could open it up for audience comments if there were any audience comments in the subject commission, unless you all have any oppositions to that. Do we have any audience comments on the budget? We did invite comments.
James Gerard. He did not check in with me. He submitted online, so he may not be
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, so we'll receive a copy via email for that. Thank you so much. Next, we have the acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report. Good evening.
Good evening. Zach Shalafor, partner with James Moore and Company. We have the PowerPoint up and live, so we are good to go there. So I do have the annual audit results for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2024. Do want to just quickly start, acknowledge the time frame. The audit typically due to the state June 30th. Also the annual comprehensive financial report that's prepared, that can be extended. That was extended. The audit was wrapped up just at the tail end of July. Obviously, lots of changes going on at the city. What I will say is we are super excited about where you all are at going forward. Already have talked with Devin about kind of plans, thoughts for timing next year to really get right back on schedule, where typically up until about a couple of years ago, normal time frame was we'd be here the first meeting, second Tuesday in April. We've got plans basically targeting having the audit done next year by March 31st to hit kind of the normal deadline and then be here at that April meeting. So did want to acknowledge that and also say a big thanks to your team. It's obviously been a lot of transition, a lot of heavy lifting. But again, we're very excited with the team that you guys have in place and where you are going forward from here. As we typically do, we'll first again acknowledge you do prepare a annual comprehensive financial report. What that means, there's a handful of items in there beyond what is the minimum required by the state of Florida. You've got a 10-year statistical section, an overall introductory section that kind of paints an overall profile of what the city is all about. That gets submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for really evaluation to say, did it meet all of the terms of that enhanced level of reporting? The 2023 ACFR, as we call it, did receive the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. We expect that to be present once again for the 2024 financial statements. This huge document, these are management's, your financial statements. There's 4 reports that we issued that summarized the results of the audit. The first is the audit report on the financial statements, and that's the primary focus and objective of this engagement. We did issue an unmodified opinion which says that your financial statements are what we call fairly presented in all material respects. Effectively, the numbers can be relied upon. That's the best opinion that we can issue and what you want to see here. The second report, while we do not, there are separate audits focused on internal control to have an opinion on internal control. So we don't issue an opinion on the city's internal controls, but we do consider your controls as it relates to financial reporting and key financial processes. And any items that come to our attention through that testing would show up potentially here. We had 3 comments in this report. Again, many of them very, I think, just a natural result of all the transition moving pieces for the city. The first one related to the reconciliation of year-end balances, just having audit adjustments as part of getting to the final numbers in the financial statements. And the other 2 related to a couple items related to just documentation from a payroll process standpoint of approvals and everything of that nature, as well as the third comment related to access rights to ensure that as any employees terminate their employment with the city, that any access rights that were with those individuals are promptly removed, and there's a process around that. So those are the 3 comments we had. Again, most of them very related to just all of the moving pieces and transitions, and expect that most of those will be addressed in the next year. There is a response from management at the very back of the document addressing the plan on those. The last 2 items are really a catch-all from the state of Florida. If there's any financial condition concerns or kind of red flags that the city triggers, we would have to note those in here. No such items identified. The only item in here, which we've had for a couple years, relates to the building department fund balance. There's state statutes in terms of what that maximum carryover can be relative to the size of your budget. So we're just noting that at the end of the year, you were over that statutory limitation. All right, so with regard to the numbers, this is really the fun stuff. I always like to look at your general fund balance. That's your assets minus liabilities, so your primary operating reserves of the city. You can see here about just under $20 million in total. And the bulk of that we really like to focus on is your assigned and your unassigned, those bottom 2 amounts that really represent your residual unrestricted reserves. Because in this fund here, there's not much in that restricted category. Generally, your restricted dollars, those are tracked in separate funds to really have the accountability and transparency over those dollars. But looking at your assigned and your unassigned, the next slide here, what I like to do is compare that to just what did you spend in the general fund in the current year to say, let's put that into perspective. As a percent, you're about 61%. In terms of months, that would be about 8 months in reserve. Yeah, about 8 months in reserves, not quite. And we kind of measure that against the GFOA minimum recommendation from guidance that's out there. They say a bare minimum of 2, and they give you a whole bunch of reasons to say, here's why you might want to be higher. Are you a relatively smaller government? Are you prone to natural disasters? We, of course, have a beautiful beach here, but I kind of tell all my clients, if you're in Florida, I don't care if you have a beach or not. Obviously, talking about FEMA, we've dealt with that in recent years. So when we talk about how many years does it take in some cases to get those dollars back again, there's lots of reasons out there that I look at it and say a 7 to 8 month reserve, given the size of the city overall, a very, probably healthy, appropriate, and consistent with many other cities of similar size percentage, just because you're not so big that that percentage is going to stay at a pretty low number when you look at it relative to the size of the budget versus just how many dollars do we have to help get through any potential contingencies, hurricane situations, things of that nature. Your business type funds, we look at a similar bottom line number, your unrestricted net position there. These numbers can fluctuate a little bit because there are what we call non-cash impacts from the allocated pension liability, items of that nature. The one here, of course, the reclaimed water fund did go a little bit into the negative, but your wastewater and stormwater both moving in an overall kind of combined positive direction. And then your pension plans, always like to touch on these, mainly because in your financial statements, you do present what is called your net pension liability, and that represents just the long-term, what is the liability on those plans versus what do you have in assets at the end of the year. On that table on the right, that shows the funded percentages year over year. So you can see a very positive movement from your 2023 percentages to 2024, getting closer to 100% funded. That really just being a product of the market in fiscal year 24, the stock market performed very well above your assumed rates of return, so all of those moved in a positive direction. I always emphasize it's about the long game. You're going to see those ebbs and flows, but it's really a matter of whenever there's a decision point related to a pension plan that you look at and say, hey, just because we look good today doesn't mean we're going to look good tomorrow, and say, okay, what is the long-term impact of any of those decisions that might be in front of you? So those are the highlights. I'll be more than glad to answer any questions, and thank you all again for the chance to be here.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
City Clerk, do we have any general audience comments?
I have no more comment cards.
Okay. Next, we move on to a consent agenda. Are there any items you would like to discuss? If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda? To
Make a
approve it?
motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
City Clerk, if you please do a roll call.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Znicki?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have action items. First reading of Resolution 2025-19.
Yes, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, making findings, expanding the Corey Landing Green reuse area by including property located at 75 Corey Avenue and 85 Corey Circle, St. Pete Beach, Florida, and identified by parcel ID numbers 36-31-15-30672-063-0230 and parcel 36-31-15-35900-000-0010 pursuant to Section 376.802C Florida statutes for the purpose of rehabilitation, job creation, and promoting economic redevelopment, authorizing the City of St. Pete Beach to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection of said designation, providing an effective date.
Thank you.
The applicant is here and can present the request.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City staff. My name is Brett Brumman with the Goldstein Environmental Law Firm. We have offices at 2100 Ponce de Leon Boulevard in Coral Gables, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant and property owner, KT Corey Ave LLC. I'm also a registered lobbyist with the city. So we are here at the first of two public hearings to consider a resolution that would expand the existing Corey Landing green reuse area that was designated by the City Commission in 2022 to include two additional parcels that were recently acquired by the new property owner and new developer for the collection of parcels at the end of Corey Avenue and Corey Circle. So this evening, I would just like to discuss the original designation and some of the environmental history at the site that led to the original developer requesting the designation. And then I'll provide some new information about the new parcels that were acquired, as well as some of the environmental issues there and the work that the current property owner and applicant has done to remediate those issues. And then I'll provide an overview of the Florida Brownfields Redevelopment Program and the criteria for designation. In 2022, at the prior developer's request, the city held two public hearings and adopted Resolution 2022-23, which created the Corey Landing Green Reuse Area, the collection of parcels located at the very end of Corey Avenue and Corey Circle, where the old bridge used to be. These parcels had a variety of historical uses. Some were quite interesting, including seaplane sales and services starting in the 1940s, as well as gas station and auto repair, and boat rentals and boat service facilities. These uses, many of which required installation of underground storage tanks for storage of petroleum products. They also may have had inadvertent releases of contaminants through their general operations or vehicle maintenance. There's also some imported fill brought to the site that could have had who knows what in it when it was imported back when it was imported. So the combination of these uses did result in some localized environmental contamination that did need to be addressed under Florida law. Ultimately, that previous development did not happen, but the applicant is the new property owner and developer who is willing and has done quite a significant amount of work to pick up the baton and take it across the environmental finish line in a regulatory closure sense. The 2 additional parcels that the applicant acquired and would like to fold into the existing Quarry Landing Green reuse area are located at 75 Quarry Avenue and 85 Quarry Circle. The property at 75 Quarry Avenue was the former Charlie's, which is an auto repair facility or auto repair shop, and the property at 85 Quarry Circle was the former Blue Parrot restaurant. There are also environmental impacts on the former Charlie's parcel from leaking underground storage tanks. These have been known of for quite a while and have been going through a remediation process and monitoring process with the Pinellas County Department of Health and FDEP. However, the applicant has fully delineated those environmental impacts from the leaking underground storage tanks and fully delineated the environmental impacts from the leaking underground storage tanks and other uses on the northern parcels that were previously designated. We do have environmental impacts identified at the former Charlie site. The Blue Parrot site, no environmental impacts from those historical uses were identified. However, we're requesting that that parcel be included because it is part of the overall development plan. And the definition of a brownfield area in the Florida statutes does recognize that not all parcels within the designated area are contaminated. That definition defines a brownfield area as a contiguous area of one or more brownfields, some of which may not be contaminated and which has been designated by a local government by resolution. So this resolution and what the resolution that was adopted in 2022 do, they create this brownfield area which acts as a mini economic development district within which a developer or property owner may access incentives from the state of Florida to address that contamination in advance of or through their redevelopment project. Just an overview of all of the contaminants identified through the historical reviews. Most were petroleum products associated with those leaking underground storage tanks and some additives to the fuel, including chromium, lead, and volatile organic compounds. Also identified was a metal called arsenic, which is relatively common in Florida's barrier island system, just from decomposition of shells and that type of material over time. In groundwater, we also had some issues, mostly with the petroleum products from those leaking tanks and those volatile organic compounds. So the applicant has done a significant amount of work at the site to remediate those conditions. All of the underground storage tanks have been removed and closed, and the applicant is in the process of reporting those tank closures and the assessment surrounding the tanks to Pinellas County and FDEP. The applicant has also removed approximately 5,745 tons of contaminated soil from the entire site, including the former Charlie's parcel, down to a maximum depth of about 8 feet. The excavation sidles were confirmed clean, and the excavation areas were filled with clean soil back to the original grade. Now, this figure just is a snapshot of some of the impacts that were identified in the top 5 inches of soil by the previous developer. So this is data that's a little bit older, but soil tends not to move around much on its own. So those impacts were pretty similar to what was there when the soil was removed. The green outlined area identifies areas of soil contaminant concentrations above the criteria for a residential use, and the pink or magenta outlined area identifies soil with contaminant concentrations above the criteria for a commercial or an industrial use. So somewhat high levels there, but the contaminated soil has been excavated and disposed off-site in a landfill and replaced with clean soil. And during this excavation process, because groundwater does tend to enter these excavated areas, if you're approaching the water table, the applicant extracted nearly 2 million gallons of groundwater that was presumed to be contaminated. It was treated on site before being discharged. So that we expected that to remove a significant portion of the impacted groundwater from the site. And that was the result. There are just a few lingering areas of some petroleum contamination that will be monitored during the construction and post-construction process, and with those monitoring results being reported to FDEP. Now, this is a component of Florida's Brownfields Redevelopment Program, so the program does require a conceptual development plan at a minimum in order to access the program and the incentives provided by the state. So the applicant is proposing a less intensive development than was previously proposed in 2022, with 132 residential condominium units with a 5,000 square foot restaurant and a 6,600 square foot retail space, along with new boat slips, a new seawall, and public access to the waterfront through a waterfront park. So what this resolution does not do, if it is approved, is does not grant development approvals. The city has a separate development approval process, and that process can continue unabated. This process plays no impact on that. The applicant must still go through that process, and this program provides no shortcuts at all. It simply allows for these new parcels to be folded in and the applicant to include them in a voluntary cleanup agreement with the state called a Brownfield Site Rehabilitation Agreement. This program also does not require any city funding. This program is entirely funded by the state through the corporate income tax, or the primary financial incentive that is available here. The voluntary cleanup tax credit is a Florida corporate income tax credit, so it is funded by the corporate income tax in the state of Florida. So just an overview of what this program is. The city does have some experience with Florida's Brownfield Redevelopment Program, but it has been a while. So the program itself was established by the legislature in 1997 as a tool for both local governments and private developers to address contamination caused in the past by somebody else. It became a huge issue of people contaminating a site, then leaving them to future owners to address. So the state recognized that there's an economic development opportunity there. So the state allows local governments to designate these areas, and then property owners within those areas, which may include a local government, can enter into those cleanup agreements with the state to access these cleanup incentives. These main incentives, as I mentioned, the voluntary cleanup tax credit is the primary incentive. It's not a grant program. This is a program that requires the responsible party, the party assuming responsibility, to spend the money up front. They then apply to the state every year for a partial reimbursement, in this case a 50% reimbursement that comes back in the form of a tax credit that they can either use or sell to somebody else who can. There are also bonus tax credits available to encourage you to actually finish the work and receive your site rehabilitation completion order from the state. There are also some limited liability protections that come with the program as well by entering into that cleanup agreement. They're very similar to what you would find under federal law for knowingly purchasing a contaminated site, but it really, they're limited to freedom from liability for additional cleanup beyond what the state beyond what the state acquires or requires, as well as freedom from liability for contribution to other parties who also need to spend money on cleanup, but they are not participating in the Brownfields program, as well as freedom from liability for property damage claims by third parties. However, that is limited because a property owner, or a party participating in the Brownfields program must still address or chase contamination that has migrated off-site. So that's a key component of any BSRA. You must address all contamination that emanates from your own property, your Brownfield site. So the city does have some experience, as I mentioned. In 2005, the city designated the community waterfront park area, which is right across the street from us, at the community center in the park on the water. I'm not aware of the facts of what caused the contamination there or the remediation that happened. But the city did designate that by resolution in 2005 and then entered into a Brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with the state for just a portion of that property. So as I mentioned before with the Blue Parrot parcel, although that parcel was not contaminated, we like to include it anyway. A similar situation arose in 2005 where the city designated more area than was ultimately subject to the Brownfield agreement and cleanup. The second involvement of the city in the Florida Brownfields program was designation of the Quarry Landing Green reuse area in 2022. The process is governed by statute, the Florida Brownfields Redevelopment Act. It requires application to the city, as well as notice through posting and publication, holding a community meeting, which we did on July 31st at the Hilton Garden Inn, St. Pete Beach. I believe we had about 9 to 10 attendees at that meeting. We also are required to conduct 2 public hearings, which is odd for a resolution. That's just the way the legislature wrote the statute. We do have to have 2 public hearings on this one resolution. And at these public hearings, we'd be asked to apply 5 objective criteria for designation. The statute states if the applicant can satisfy those 5 criteria, the local government shall approve the resolution creating the brownfield area. And finally, if that resolution is approved, the applicant can then enter into a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with FDEP to govern the cleanup process and activate those incentives from the state. And just to close with our 5 criteria for designation that are set forth in the statute, The first is that the designation must be requested by a person who owns or controls the property. They also must have a redevelopment plan, and they must agree to rehabilitate the property. When we say rehabilitation in Florida or site rehabilitation, that means cleanup. That's the way it's defined in the statute. So here, the KT Corey Ave, which is the applicant, is both the owner and the developer. They have submitted a development plan to the city for review, and they've already begun the cleanup process and are committed to completing that cleanup process through the additional reporting and monitoring that'll need to happen throughout the development. The second requirement is that the rehabilitation or redevelopment result in economic productivity and create at least 5 jobs. There are exceptions to that requirement for projects that will provide a park, but although a park will be available here, the applicant does satisfy the job creation requirement. And here the applicant is spending about $208.5 million on the project, and we expect about 70 new jobs to be created at the site. So this project will result in economic productivity and will turn an area of long vacant parcels into something that is usable for city residents and city visitors in the future, as well as being a big job creator. The third is that the redevelopment be consistent with the local comprehensive plan and be permittable under the local land development regulations. Now, this criterion does not require development permits to be issued, but simply that the project as proposed is something that can be built on this property. It is located in a TC2 zoning district with a TC2 West Future Land Use designation, which does allow mixed-use projects of this type. Solely residential projects are not allowed. There is a mixed-use requirement for these collection of parcels, which is what the applicant plans here. The fourth requirement is that notice be provided in accordance with the statutory requirements through posting and publication, and we give those receiving a notice an opportunity for comments and suggestions about the project and designation. So we satisfy this requirement through publishing notice in the Tampa Bay Times, posting notice at the property, and posting notice on the city's bulletin board of our community meeting. Additional notices were published in the Tampa Bay Times and the Gabber newspaper of the public hearings. And then our community meeting on July 31st, 2025 was our opportunity for comments and suggestions. And of course, these 2 public hearings are additional opportunities for comments from the public. And then finally, the applicant must provide reasonable assurance that they have the sufficient financial resources to complete the rehabilitation and redevelopment. Here, the applicant, in our first submittal, we included a letter certifying the applicant does have sufficient financial resources to satisfy this reasonable assurance requirement. However, the applicant, I believe this is bolstered by the applicant's experience in both the southeastern United States and the greater Tampa Bay region as an affiliate of the Coulter Group with building large-scale multifamily projects, including in St. Petersburg, Tampa, Naples, and Sarasota. And I brought with me the applicant's development portfolio to show the breadth of their experience working on similar projects in the region. Thank you. And I believe the applicant's commitment to this site and the ability to secure the necessary financial resources are demonstrated in their ability to fund similar or even larger scale projects than what's proposed here throughout the region, as well as their spending of over $1 million already on just the cleanup. So if we're looking at the ability to both fund rehabilitation and redevelopment, the rehabilitation aspect has largely already been funded, as evidenced by spending that money on the excavation of soil, import of new soil, and the groundwater treatment methods that were in place here. And of course, the spending of money on cleanup is not a money-making endeavor. That's money that has to be spent. It is not necessarily recovered, but the Brownfields opportunity, the Brownfields program is an opportunity to receive a partial reimbursement for the work that the applicant has done to clean up this area of the city. And just looking forward, we already had our community meeting on July 31st. Today is our first public hearing, and we also have a second public hearing currently scheduled for September 9th. And then the applicant's deadline to enter into that cleanup agreement with the state would be December 31st of this year. With that, I'm available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Commissioners, questions?
I do have Brett, a question regarding the contaminants in the groundwater. So for future responsibilities, once the developer has concluded their part, and if anything is built there, who has ownership in the future?
Of the environmental issues?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner, yes, thank you. So the if there is any remnant groundwater contamination that remains on the property owner at the time, whoever the property owner is, whether it's the applicant or somebody else, they must record a declaration of restrictive covenant on the property that will prohibit any use of the groundwater for irrigation or drinking purposes. And the idea there is by not using the groundwater, the plume will stabilize. And with petroleum products, often because those products can attenuate over time. However, that deed restriction would apply both to the current property owner and all future property owners in perpetuity. And the state has an obligation to check the institutional controls, like those deed restrictions, every 5 years to ensure they are still in place and they are still being complied with.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'm going to say, educate me a little bit on the new name too as well, the green reuse from Brownsville. I guess it sounds better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. From the Charlies and the Blue Parrot, you're looking to get more tax credit. Would that be a correct statement?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Even though they don't have the contaminants that the other properties had?
Yes, ma'am. So the Charlie's does have the contamination issues from the underground storage tanks, and that area was subject to the excavation. So those tax credits would only apply to costs that were actually spent. By including the Blue Parrot, even though there's no contamination to clean up there, that provides no net benefit or no benefit at all to the applicant financially.
Right, but he would get more tax credit from the size of the property, or is it just based on the work that they've done?
It is just based on the work that they've done. At the end of the year, we would submit a tax credit application to the state with all of the invoices and payment records, and the state would review that to determine if those costs were necessary for the cleanup before issuing the tax credit.
And that tax credit goes on in perpetuity to the next owner? How many years, or is it in perpetuity?
It is a single-use tax credit issued to the entity that is on the cleanup agreement because it can be applied to your corporate income tax. So, for example, KT Corey Avenue LLC would receive a corporate income tax credit. As an LLC, they can't use that corporate income tax credit, so they would sell that to a company that does, and then they could use the cash for the proceeds from selling that tax credit to reinvest in their projects. And that tax credit would continue on an annual basis, just only if you incur the costs. If you stop incurring costs, there's no more tax credit available for you.
So there's continual cleanup is what they'd have to do to continue to get the benefit, the tax benefit?
Yes, ma'am. And the goal here is issuance of a site rehabilitation completion order from the state, which documents, it's a no further action letter if you're familiar with that terminology, documents no additional actions necessary with respect to your contamination, and that's the end of the process. There's no need for the incentives beyond that.
And has the owner submitted a certified financial statement?
I'm not aware of that, Commissioner.
So other than this would be it? that we
Correct.
have?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And as far as some of the contaminants that you spoke about, the ground contaminants, those are typically found on something like off of 275. You would find typically the arsenic, the chromium, the lead.
Typical, yeah, they are typical.
Typical
Yeah.
to find against a roadway.
Yes, they can be,
General.
yeah.
What's not typical is the underground storage tanks.
Correct, and those are a clear point source.
Right, and are those required to be taken out?
Tanks can be closed in place, I believe. I'm not the
I
technical
ask
expert.
because I know that there's a couple gas stations on the beach here that never took out their tanks.
Yes, yes. So generally, they can be closed in place, but then you have concerns about residual contamination leaking out. So it's best practice, I think, to remove those, close those, and report it. And during your tank closure process, you also do an assessment of the soil and groundwater surrounding that tank and include that in your closure report.
And you said you treated the groundwater on site,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you released it? Where did you release it to?
It was released, the treated groundwater was released into the stormwater system.
Into the bay?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I guess I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the imported fill, it's the same imported fill that came over here to all of this? For all the fingers and all the other areas that we have? I mean, it's no different fill than what was filled
Oh.
on the islands here.
The original
Right,
fill?
yeah, the
Yeah,
original
likely.
fill.
Yeah, we did find there's even the old seawall. You could see the old seawall and how they'd extended
So it'd be
out.
the same thing against somebody else's house down the street, basically?
Yeah, I can't say that, but contamination is always site-specific, depending on where the source and how it has been used in the meantime, but it's always a possibility.
I'm talking specifically about the fill itself.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any audience comments?
I have no comments.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question for the city attorney.
Yes, Your Honor? Or yes, Mayor? So you're talking to judges.
So under the 5 objective criteria, number 3, that the redevelopment is consistent with local comprehensive plan and is permittable. What they've proposed is a by application, not by right. Would
I'll-
that, does this objective criteria refer to things that, so what they've proposed is something that might be permitted. It isn't permitted by right. So does this criteria specifically speak to things that are by right only, or also to things that might be approved?
This criteria is about by right. It doesn't include the specific application that they're proposing, which you can deny, modify, amend, but they are allowed to have mixed use under TC2 Division 37.
Sure.
So basically, what they're saying is under the land use and zoning district, it's not zone conservation. They are allowed some reasonable economic use of their property. That's all we're certifying here.
Certainly, it's just that what they presented in their presentation is not what is the...
They have more detail in their slide presentation, but
No, what I'm saying is in their presentation, they have 135 units, which is above and beyond what is by right. And so I just don't want to mix, if they had just said, hey, we're going to build something that's mixed use, that's one thing. But because they included something that isn't by right, I don't want to confuse these two issues. And then somebody comes back a couple months from now for a CUP application and says, well, yeah, we told you it was going to be 135 units. And yeah, we told you that's what the brownfields designation was for. When
understood, we can make the change to the resolution to make it clear that we're only approving this for as of right, and there may be additional uses that are allowed by conditional use application or density pools, but we'll make it clear that in the second reading of the resolution, it's only for the as of right LDR.
Yeah, because their presentation has, in one of the slides here that they put up, it says mixed-use residential and commercial, 132 residential units, 7 levels. I mean, they gave the entire project details in here. It's not,
Yeah.
and that,
I'm looking at the resolution, and the resolution doesn't do that. We'll make that clear that it does not include a specific development proposal. It says number 3, redevelopment of the subject property as a mixed-use development is consistent with TC2 future land use designation for the subject property as set forth in the city's comprehensive plan and is a permittable use within the TC2 zoning district. That's all we have in the resolution.
mhm.
Want to make sure that that's addressed next time in the slide,
Certainly.
which could potentially include, but
Okay.
not necessarily.
I'm sorry, are you an attorney?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Then on the criteria, we were going through number 5.
Mhm.
I think a question was asked about what financial assurances were provided. In the agenda packet in page 667, there's a financial assurances letter, but it's from the LLC itself. And I'd like to see, perhaps by second reading, if we could get a letter from a financial institution confirming the availability of funds or financial assurances or project pre-qualification. The idea here is that if you ask me, do I have enough money to buy the house? I'll say, oh, yes, I have enough money to buy that house. But if you're actually buying the house, the mortgage company's going to want to see some kind of bank statement or a letter from a bank saying that you have sufficient funds or that you're either pre-qualified or pre-approved up to a certain amount. And the prior brownfield financial assurances were provided for a prior owner. So this is the first time we get financial assurances for this new owner. So if we get some kind of independent financial institution to give us a letter. That may be helpful with criteria number 5.
Okay, and then one other point of correction for the presentation, the next commission meeting is September 8th, not the 9th.
My apologies, okay. I'll correct that, thank you.
It's a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We had to move that meeting to a Monday.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
Make the motion to approve the first reading of Resolution 2025-19.
Second?
City Clerk, if you please call roll.
Commissioner Rosnicki,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson,
Yes.
and Mayor Petrilla.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we do not have any additional ordinances. We do not have any specific items for discussion, so we'll move on to reports. City Clerk,
I have nothing to report this evening.
thank you. City Manager,
Thank you. Just a few reports. First one from the Public's Government Relations Manager. Staff reached out to their office, as we have been frequently in contact, and the last report from them states that while they do appreciate the city's interest in getting Publix number 139 reopened, as we are also eager to serve the wonderful community of St. Pete Beach again. Publix is currently in the early stages of this project, and we are not able to provide an approximate timeline at this moment. However, we hope to know more in the next month, and they will be sure to keep us posted on the progress. So as I receive that information, I will continue these public reports. And then lastly, a report on our renourishment project. Pinellas County is scheduled to begin the Upham Beach portion of its emergency beach renourishment project on September 15th, with construction expected to last approximately 1 month. The project will place about 66,000 cubic yards of sand along about 1,900 feet of shoreline. Please note the dune construction is not included in this effort. The sand source is Blind Pass, and Gator Dredging is the contractor. The Upham Beach portion is estimated at $1.3 million. This work is part of a one-time emergency renourishment effort across Sand Key, Treasure Island, and Upham Beach, with a total project cost of almost $126 million. Funding is coming primarily from the tourist development tax, 89%, while the remaining 11% from state grants. Pinellas County has emphasized that this scale of locally funded renourishment is unsustainable without federal partnership, and this will be the last project of its kind undertaken without U.S. Army Corps of Engineers support. So we will continue to work on our relationship with the federal agency. Thank you. End of report.
and the Paso Grill section was completed already.
Yes, sir.
City Attorney,
Nothing for this evening.
thank you, sir. District 4.
Reminder to everyone in District 4, as well as the other commissioners, that on 2 September, we're going to have some disruption to the area of 1st through 9th Avenue. In a good way, we're putting up the temporary wall barriers there, so glad to see that finally come to fruition. And then I'd like to, again, just publicly thank our city manager and public services director for responding to yet another blockage on Vina Del Mar. We did find some obstruction out there. Crews were out there and did a great job clearing that. So once again, thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you. District 3.
Just a reminder for the Donsa Star community that there is a community meeting tomorrow evening, Wednesday, August 27th, 6 p.m. here at City Hall Chambers.
Thank you. District 2.
Just a reminder, I have library hours on September 2nd, so if anybody hasn't gone away for the weekend or they're on their way back, to come see me at the library.
Thank you. District 1.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. And just a reminder that we are in the middle of hurricane season. We do have additional resources available on the city website, and as well as Egan Park has sandbag stations available. So if you do need those, please make sure that you know that they're there and take advantage of them. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.